name is Beverly Ann Whitmore. Am 70 years old. I've been a widow for more than a decade. And until recently, I thought I knew the meaning of the word family. But tell me something. What would you do if, after a simple doctor's appointment, your own doctor handed you a note saying, "How? Don't go home. Run? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. And night, I found out why. Maybe you, like me, have already felt that there is something strange in the air. Those small attitudes, the averted looks, the way they start talking quietly when you enter the room. In the beginning, we convince ourselves that it's something in our heads. But the heart, the heart always knows when it's being pushed out. In this video, I'm going to tell you what happened after that note. I will open, calmly and truthfully, the doors of a story that involves betrayal, silence, and a choice that saved me. You will understand what really happened inside my house and why I had to run away from what I loved most. Because sometimes the greatest violence, it comes from those who we created with our own hands. But before we dive into the heart of this story, I need you to know something. That night, after reading that note with trembling hands, I discovered that what they were doing to me was not carelessness, nor exaggeration of my head. No, it did not hit you. Help out my head. It was a plan. A cold and a calculated plan devised by those I helped to raise myself. And there, out they heel, alone, standing in the middle of the street, I realized I wasn't just a forgotten lady. I was the target. But I also need to tell you something else. Something that not even my son knows to this day. I've been hiding a secret all these years. Something that seemed buried in time, but ended up becoming my only weapon. It was this secret that kept me standing. So, before I continue, can I ask you something? If this story has already touched your heart, if you've ever been through something similar, or know someone who has been left behind by themselves, give me a sign that I am not alone. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, comment if you want, because reliving all this hurts more than it seems. But when we feel that there is someone listening on the other side, it seems that the soul finds a place to breathe. The house where I lived was beautiful on the outside. Those little red bricks, the balcony with rocking chairs, the garden that I took care of myself with small scissors and calloused hands. Many people who passed by thought that there lived a lucky woman there. And I let them think about it. It was easier than explaining the loneliness that filled that place, even with people inside. Claire, my daughter-in-law, my distressed, had taken care of the kitchen and the whole house. For that matter, a thousand he said that I should rest, enjoy my age. But the way she said that, it seemed that I was an old piece of furniture, something that adorns, but is not good for anything else. One day, She even changed the recipe for my cornbread. The one my husband loved. I did it my way now. Beverly, more modern. 1960 me sick paprakoti stat. Lighter. Ha. Nitsimissimo, she said, down, with a smile that never reached her eyes. My son, Aaron, Minasimo, was educated. How? It always has been. She called me Mom in that soft voice. But far, he managed my accounts to help me. He said, "Well, don't worry. Let me sort everything out. You just sign here." And I signed. Because we want to believe in our children. We want to think that we created it right. And there was Emily, my granddaughter, Nia, 17. Now, we are at the almost a 7. How no pa, with it using. Beautiful, but nay. Oh, how it hurt, the way she didn't see me anymore. He passed me in the corridor like someone passing through a wall. At most, a hi. Grandma. And that's it. In the past, oh well. He hugged me. Hail. Asked me to tell stories. Lay on my lap. Now, he lived with headphones in his ears and eyes on his cell phone. One day, because, well, I tried to touch her arm. She pulled slowly, saying nothing, as if my hand was something uncomfortable. My day was always the same. I got up at 6, as I always did. I passed coffee, roasted something, watered the orchids. He tidied up the room. He prepared tea at 4, always at 4, with cinnamon cookies and a cloth napkin. No one came. I drank it alone. And lo, turned down. On the balcony table, Mastigisio and Sol Chow. Sometimes I put 2 seats, just to remind me of when Nathan was still here. I still wrote to him. You know, in letters. Hanasidi Kai. I kept them all in a wooden box in my closet. I wrote as if he was going to read it one day. I told how I was feeling. He told of the silence that hurt more than any scream. And yet, Mernadina up-shouldered, I smiled. He greeted everyone lightly. Because I learned that when we scream, no one hears. But when we shut up, God listens. But there is a silence that is not peace. It's a warning. I began to notice small things. The conversations that stopped when I entered the room. The doors ajar that closed quickly. The smiles that came too late. The wedding anniversary with Nathan that no one remembered. Not a word. And I put the picture on the coffee table. On purpose. On. The pain. That day came in my hands. They began to shake as I folded the kitchen cloth. It was as if my body said, "You're not seen anymore. Not even remembered." There was one night in particular. Emily arrived from the street, entered and went straight through. I asked, "How are you, honey?" "What?" she replied without looking. "I'm Lloyd trained. I have a headache." Grandma, Claire added from the kitchen. "What did I type? On the kitchen?" It's just that she's really stressed out about school. Beverly, teenager, mourned your call. You know how it is. I replied, I know. I was also a mother. I just don't remember being invisible. Claire laughed. That cold way. Ah, and he changed the subject. There, sitting at the table, with the tea already cold and the cake untouched, I thought, how is it possible for a full house to be so empty? No, Nick, there's a kind of loneliness that does not come from absence. It comes from the presence that pretends you don't exist. If you've ever felt that, if you've ever been to a place where no one else saw you, he comments below with it's true or I've lived it. Because sometimes we just need to feel that someone on the other side of the screen understands. But that week, something has changed. Small. Hi. But it has changed. Claire was hunched over the computer. Ma. He spoke softly on the phone. When he saw me, Mao. He disguised it. Lundao. I pretended not to notice, but I wrote it down in the notebook I kept in the bathroom closet. Yes, I had already started writing things down. A sentence here, a word there. Aaron was also strange. He touched my shoulder when he passed me. Ma'am, I'm the dead house use cow. He called me mommy. It wasn't his way. It never was. And Emily, well, Emily started to watch me. With you now, like someone who measures the time of a candle that is going out. The most curious, all this started after I was scheduled for a routine appointment with Dr. Hoplandau. Livingston, why now, a doctor I've known for more than 20 years, and I didn't know that in that consultation, on I see well, my life was going to turn upside down. But this, you will understand in the next chapter. I didn't harm, because what he delivered to me in that office, it was much more than a note. It was a warning of war. The appointment with Dr. Livingston was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. I knew that office better than I knew my own room. More than 20 years ago, it was there that I did my exams, took advice, shared doubts about pressure, joint pain, insomnia. He was always direct, but kind, never in a hurry, never far away. Nay, he always looked me in the eye, until that day, in the cold room, with that smell of disinfectant and eucalyptus. I took off my coat slowly, sat in the usual chair, and waited for him to start the usual ritual, asking how my diet was going, measuring my blood pressure, listening to my heart. But that morning, something was different. Doctor Livingston did not take his eyes off the file. He avoided looking at me. His hands were restless, as if looking for an invisible support. He tried to smile, but the smile was short, tense. You're still standing your ground. What, Beverly? I don't. I said, Lee, as I measured my pressure. a little harder than usual. I pretended I didn't notice. I've always been good at faking it. He wrote down a few things, and when it came time to hand me the tests and the usual prescription, it took a little longer. And that's when it happened. Wow. He put the papers in my hand, but between them, there was something more. A folded piece of paper, with the edge slightly crumpled. She looked at me for a second, firmly, beyond the sit down, and said quietly, "Moo, keep taking good care of yourself. No, you look great." Then he got up. "Oh, open the door. Hand, nearby." Dan hopped to Kel and waited for me to come out. No, I still hadn't understood what that meant. I only opened the paper when I was already on the sidewalk, with the morning sun hitting my back and the noise of traffic passing slowly on Queen Street. I opened slowly, gray handwritten lines, with a handwriting I knew from the days when my husband was still alive. "Don't go home. Run. They will not stop. Many unled wonder." My heart stopped. There, oh, in the middle of the street, with my bag on my shoulder and the wind stirring my white hair, I stood still. I read and reread those words. I felt my mouth dry. The note weighed more than any suitcase. It was not a metaphor. It was not an exaggeration. It was real. The question that crossed my soul was only one. Them? Who were they? Claire? Aaron? Emily? No. My doctor would never write something like that for no reason. But running away? Me, 70 years old. Wow. Running away from home like a panicked teenager? I felt my legs wobbly. My stomach turned for a moment. Wow. Litsitsinteri, Hana, Notrat, Achaisufstika, Achakati. I considered getting into a taxi and disappearing from there. But no. Something inside me said it was too early to run. If there was a plan, no. I needed to understand it first, to know how far he had gone, who was inside, who was an accomplice, who saw me as a burden. I kept the folded note inside the cover of my notebook. I took a deep breath, looked around, and returned home, not out of stubbornness, but because, in order to protect myself, I first needed to see clearly. And that same night, hidden behind a badly closed door, I heard the first sentence that confirmed everything. And it was worse than I imagined. I returned home as someone who steps on flooded ground, each step afraid of sinking. The gate still made that old creak that Nathan said he was going to fix and never did. I went inside, closed it carefully, and walked to the porch. Then our kitchen light was on. From there, low, whispered voices came. 3 voices. My son, my son, my daughter-in-law, my granddaughter, They whispered, meow. They stopped as soon as the door opened. Why, the smell of roast chicken with rosemary, which had previously welcomed me as a hug, now seemed to disguise something else. Claire turned quickly and smiled. Hi, Beverly. Did you arrive well? How was the consultation? That was not a question. It was a performance. Aaron adjusted the tablecloth, his eyes downcast, as if the floral print was the most interesting topic of the night. Emily didn't even look. I was on my cell phone, me, as always. But this time, his hands trembled. No, it was okay, I replied. Little paid, I want a pile. Sitting calmly, no shell. The doctor said, I'm fine. Claire served the dishes with an uncanny, no, almost theatrical agility. Oh, that's good. Health is everything, right? Especially at that age. He forced a giggle. The silence grew again. Then she continued, just today, I saw an advertisement for a new nursing home. Beautiful. There are activities of painting, music, even ballroom dancing. I looked at her calmly and just asked, and are you thinking of moving there? Aaron's fork hit the plate. Claire froze for a second. Emily laughed through her nose without looking up. My, you always have these jokes, Beverly. Claire said, so well, composing herself. No, but look, seriously, less. You've done so much. Maybe it's time to rest. Enjoy more. Leave some responsibilities with us. Right? I chewed slowly. The chicken was dry, the same seasoning as always, but tasteless. What responsibilities would those be? Claire, I asked. She hesitated. No, Duncan. Nanich. Things of the house. Sue. Yeah. Our children here is day of decisions. Like this idea of reform. You don't even need that now. Do you? No. Leave it to us to take care of. I took a deep breath. I just commented that I wanted to change the front window. The wind comes right into the fall. She smiled. No. False as a candle lit at noon. But is it worth spending on it now? We can see this later. I looked at Aaron. He kept his eyes on the plate, like a boy caught in a lie. And it was there, between the sound of cutlery and the shadow of unspoken words, that certainty crossed me. They were slowly pushing me out of my own life, with kindness, with concerns, with compliments about rest and comfort. But what they were doing was taking office, moving little by little, like someone who moves a vase from place to place before throwing it away. The most painful? No one looked me in the eye, not even my granddaughter. I finished my dinner in silence. I picked up my plate as I always did. I washed, dried it, stored, meantime. I heard Claire whisper something to Aaron in the room. He replied with a muffled "leave her." And there, no, they dare not act on. I circle, standing in the kitchen, no, with the dishes still damp. I realized that the doctor's note was not an exaggeration. It was a warning. And if that night I had run away, perhaps I had avoided what I heard hours later, behind that barely closed office door. Ooh, a phrase that still echoes to this day, because it has words that change everything. And that one, my God, that one changed me forever. It was late at night when I woke up. Oh, I still remember the ticking of the living room clock, repeating alone in the dark. And that different cold, it wasn't just in the body, it was in the soul. I felt thirsty, got up slowly, and on the way to the kitchen, I heard voices coming from the office, whispering, muffled words. I stopped in the hallway, barefoot on the icy floor, heart beating slowly as if trying not to attract attention. I don't know why, but I knew those voices were no ordinary conversation. I approached without making a sound. Oh, and there, behind the almost closed door, I heard my son's voice. She's not going to live forever, he said. Oh, my blood ran cold. We need guarantees. The house, her account. This should all be in our name by now. Claire replied dryly, if the doctor doesn't cooperate, we force the bar. We pretend she's confused. She's already forgotten Emily's birthday. Remember? That's great for us. And then, oh, Takne and Circle, came the worst part. My granddaughter's voice. What? My Emily, Himmelchan. How goes the one I packed in the feverish dawns, that I taught to tie my shoelaces? She laughed, a short giggle, and he said, oh, me, she already looks crazy. That sentence pierced me like a knife. It wasn't the betrayal itself, it was the contempt, the tone of mockery, the certainty with which they reduced me to a burden. How? A nuisance. A disposable old woman. I stood there, standing still, for seconds, minutes, I don't know how long, but my head was spinning. They weren't just planning to take my house or my money. They were trying to declare me mentally incapable, to become a person without a voice, without power, without history. And the worst, it was something that had been plotted for a long time. It all made sense at once. The way Aaron started to take care of my finances to make it easier. The way Claire always tried to silence me, to infantilize me. And Emily, who repeated the same words as his parents, as someone who had already learned to turn his back even before growing up. I went back to my room slowly. Without crying, I laid down, looked at the ceiling and thought, don't go home. Run. The doctor's note was a prophecy. Well, but there, Muziru Takhan, in that cutting silence, I made a decision. Wow. I wasn't going to run. I was going to look into each one's eyes and show that old. Yes, I was, but dumb, frail, alone. Oh, they were about to find out that they didn't. And if you're listening to me this far, if my outburst reached your heart, im here, top te watsukshina, opening my life with all the wounds exposed. So, give me a sign that you're there. What your section of time. Leave a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel. Wait around. Comment if you want. It's just that telling the story hurts me. But it hurts less when we know that there is someone listening on the other side. I still have a lot of things in store to tell you. That morning, after they started laughing again, I got out of bed and opened the drawer where I kept my old diaries. I took the pen and started writing. Not an outburst, but a plan, because if they were quietly erasing me, I was going to defend myself in the same tone. But what I found out the next day, it was even worse. Because sometimes the worst thing isn't to hear what they say about you, it's to find out what they've done in your name. Without you knowing, I spent the next day in silence. I woke up early, as always. I made my coffee, watered my orchids one by one, the same ones Nathan gave me on our birthdays. I touched the petals more gently than usual, more notes, as if each one was a secret of mine that no one else needed to know. I needed to think. I needed to breathe. And sometimes silence helps more than any voice. I went to the sewing room. Now, I opened the old trunk in the corner and started to take out the old scraps, the pieces of cloth that I had kept for so long. Some even smelled like the soap I used when Aaron was little. I remembered the nights when I stayed until 2 in the morning, sewing clothes for him, because we didn't have money to buy them. He cut the fabrics on the floor, his back hurting, and still did it with joy, because being a mother was my greatest pride. I remembered the car, old Cashew, a navy blue Ford, 1978. He was my darling. I bought it with the money I saved working as a librarian. I sold it for half the price when Aaron passed university. Don't worry, my mom. I'll repay you all this one day. I believed it. I auditioned. He really believed. Then came Claire, a dear Sidwise, and in the beginning, she made a point of pleasing me. She called me Mom Beverly, brought ready-made cake, said she loved my stories. One day, he asked me to borrow money to buy the trousseau for the new house. It's only until Aaron gets the next commission. They never paid. And over time, the cake became a demand. The sweet voice turned into contempt. But I kept helping, because we who are women of the old guard, he does not learn to stop giving. Emily, Emily, the most recent pain. I remember her as a little girl, sleeping on my lap with her forehead sweaty with fever. I remember the day I said no to a temporary job offer at the city library. I had an interview scheduled, but Claire called in the morning and went to set up. I don't know cognitive biscuit. Viva Sidwan. The daycare didn't accept her today. Beverly, can you stay with Emily? Only today. And it was just today for 2 years. I said yes. I always said yes. I spent the rest of the morning organizing old papers, bills, notes, old letters. I found a note from Aaron, made with colored pencils. saying I love you. Mommy, when he was 7, I read and reread that scribble until the paper was damp. I didn't cry, but I felt like I had an open hole in my chest. The pain of these memories was not for having done all that. It was not regret. I would do it all over again. The pain was realizing that for them, my still, I'm still lost to him. None of this had any value. I gave the best years of my life. I gave my body, my time, my choices, and in return, I received disdain, muffled laughter, dirty plans made behind my back. They forgot. They didn't, but my body didn't forget. My hands still smell Emily's talcum powder. My eyes can still see Aaron's tears when he fell off the swing for the first time. My ears still remember Claire's sweet words when she needed me. And in the end, after all, I was treated like a problem. But there, when Ian fiddling with that past with my fingers, I felt something different. A burning flame. Not anger, but of clarity. I had all the pieces. And who has memory? There is ammunition. That same afternoon, I decided to write everything and do what they least expected a forgotten old woman to do. But before you take the first step, I needed to find someone who knew my heart for years, and that maybe could help me turn this game around with the only weapon I still had left. The truth that night fell heavy, not because of the sky, which was clear, nor because of the weather, Lisane, which was even mild, but because of the weight that settled on my chest. I didn't scream. I didn't question it. I didn't go into the office. I didn't knock on the door. I just closed mine, inside and out. I lit the small lampshade. The one with the blue dome I bought from Nathan on our second trip to Asheville. I sat on the edge of the bed and stayed there, looking at the ground, listening to their footsteps around the house, as if listening to enemies circling a minefield. And, worst of all, there was no noise of confrontation, only the muffled sound of those who live quietly because they believe that victory is already assured. I took the old notebook, the one with a faded brown cover, which was hidden in the back of the dresser drawer. I started writing, with a small and firm handwriting, as if each word were a stone to build my own shelter. October 14th, 0:47 a.m. Well, Aaron said I wouldn't last long. Claire plans to declare me confused. Emily laughed. They don't know that I heard everything. I continued to write. Date, time, place, whole sentences, facial expressions, the way Aaron squeezed his fork during dinner, Claire's too sweet tone, Emily's calculated silence, and as the pages filled up, a question began to repeat itself inside me. At what point did I stop being the matriarch of the house, and I became a nuisance? That's what hurt the most. Not the plan, not betrayal, but the fact that, at some point, they stopped seeing me as a foundation, and they started to see me as an obstacle. I looked around. Me. The wall is full of old paintings, family photos, Nancy how fake smiles in sincere frames. There, we did not see in that room where I had previously slept with my husband and dreamed of Aaron's future. Now I just wondered how they had managed to erase me in life. But I decided not to make a scandal. Do not cry in front of them. I grew up learning that dignity is standing up, even when everything screams inside. What how? And, you know, if you're still here listening to me, it's because you may understand something that many people forget. Sometimes, the silence of an old woman is worth more than any cry of a young man. I felt that this story was still going to turn around, that the most memorable moment was yet to come. And if you follow me to the end, you will understand why this old woman here, who they called crazy, was, in fact, the only one who was lucid in that house. I stayed up all night. No, ordinary fantastic because I want to be with the notebook on her lap, writing and erasing. At one point, I just closed my eyes and said softly, God, ew, it doesn't protect me. Show me what to do. Because sometimes we don't need miracles. It needs strategy. And, oh, at 3 in the morning, well, I heard Claire talking on the phone in the kitchen. Light steps, low voice. I grabbed my robe, approached the stairs, and I heard the name of a place. A name I hadn't heard in years. And that's when I realized their plan was already underway. Much more advanced than I imagined. But what Claire didn't know, it's just that I had already started mine. The next morning, I left my apron hanging in the kitchen and announced loudly, I'm going to the bakery. And I need fresh yeast. Claire didn't even look up from her phone. Aaron just grunted and, okay, Emily, no, as usual, didn't even answer. No. I grabbed my purse, the dark leather one Nathan gave me on our last Christmas together, and walked out the front door with firm steps. But there was no bakery that morning. There was a taxi waiting 2 blocks away, which I had quietly scheduled the night before, while everyone was sleeping. I asked to go to the Citizens Bank branch on Broad Street. It was a small unit, which few knew I attended. There, with sick in a board, I kept an old personal account, opened in the days when I worked in the city library. No one but me knew of her existence. I almost forgot myself. But that day, as I swiped the card through the machine and entered my PIN with steady hands, I felt a part of me come back to life. The account was still active now, and with more than I expected. A silent amount, but enough to get started. I withdrew $2,000 in cash. I ordered a new debit card and requested that it be sent to a PO box. The employee, a soft-spoken blonde girl named Kim, frowned gently. Are you sure you don't want to have it at home? Mrs. Howe Whitmore. I smiled gently and replied, it's just a precaution. Oh, honey, sometimes we need to remember that we still have a choice. She looked at me with respect. I felt seen. for the first time in days. From there, Mao Country Sig, I went to the public library. I renewed my key card and used the computer in the adult ward. I went straight to the contract templates website and printed out a simple room rental term in the name of an old childhood friend who lived in another state. Bluff. A staging, but it was part of my construction. Every paper, every step was a brick. I returned home with the yeast bought for real, just to keep the disguise. But that envelope with the money was folded inside my coat, tight to my chest like a worn secret. No, non si resto consente al comicidio. Ad sig tal watch cartagia. There's a moment in our lives when pain is no longer just pain and becomes an impulse. When we understand that we can no longer expect to be saved by anyone, we need to save ourselves. And if you've been through this, if you've ever had to smile with a bleeding heart just to keep up appearances, comment below. Right, eh? I know how it is. Or I understand you. Because, as much as this story is mine, there are things here that I know belong to a lot of people. That night, I sat up in bed and counted the money. Twice. I kept it between the pages of the diary, where no one would look. Then I reread Dr. Livingston's note, which might suggest a voice, and she will begin. Now, a nurse. He wasn't just a warning, it was a starting point, Lou. But what I didn't know is that the next day, an unexpected visit would change the course of my plan, Lou. Because when the phone in the room rang and Claire answered, the name she mentioned in a low voice made my heart stop. And it was a name I never expected to hear again. It was in the middle of the afternoon, with the sun coming in from the side through the blinds, that I heard a light knock on the door. Grandma, can I come in? It was Emily's voice. My heart tightened. I sat back in the chair where I was reading, closed the book slowly, and lighted them see, and replied, "Wide receiver." "Sure, honey, honey." She came in slowly, with that way of someone who is about to do something she doesn't want to do. He sat on the end of the bed, his cell phone in his hand, but without moving for a few seconds, only silence. He looked at me as someone who looks at an old photograph trying to understand if he still recognizes what he sees. "Grandma, I wanted to talk," he said, in a low voice. I nodded. "You can talk." She hesitated. "Wow." He looked around. As if he were measuring the environment. "It's just that. I've been worried about you." That phrase, said like this, almost like a caress, made me feel a twinge of hope. Could it be that? Was there still a remnant of that girl who once slept on my lap? "Why worried?" I asked, with a small smile. "Oh, I don't know. You are forgotten." He doesn't remember the dates anymore. He says things like, "scrambled." I felt a chill, like last Christmas. "Remember what happened?" Of course, I remember, I replied, ah, firmly. You broke a glass in the kitchen and cried because Claire yelled at you. I went after you in the backyard. Remember? I covered you with my shawl. Oh, die. Sheldon. She froze. The memory struck. But the reaction was different. It's. What? You said that afterwards as if it had been at Easter. You have been confusing dates. It was there that I understood. It was not a concern. It was staging. And it wasn't her idea. It was someone's script. Emily, why am thou can't show I did it. Who asked you to come here? She lowered her eyes. Ooh. He messed with his cell phone. Nay, he pretended he didn't hear. We just want to help you. Everyone notices that you're different. Many, how? Quieter. He'll go signature quiet. More, meadow. Distracted. Why? That girl. My girl. Moinanxion. He was there. Almost, what town? Looking at me and reducing me to a picture of confusion. He repeated ready-made phrases. The same phrases that Aaron said when he wanted to make someone doubt their own memory. You know you love me, right? No. I said no in a whisper. You know I've done everything for you. She looked at me as if looking at a statue that was once alive. But sometimes love is not enough to take care of someone alone. Sometimes he needs help. That hurt more than anything I had ever heard, because it wasn't what she said. No, it was the form. How? It was the rehearsal, the coldness. When she left the room. Wow. There. Once she left the room, leaving a trail of cheap perfume and a pain that had no name. I sat there, one, by sound, unable to get up. Nay, on Tom, a sequential sound. I felt my hands tremble. The legs went limp. There, mine, in that armchair that has held so many smiles. I realized I lost them all. Nathan was no more. Aaron, that sweet boy, died in me a long time ago. Claire was never mine. Me still weren't mine. But Emily, Emily was my last bond. And now, even she repeated their speech. I sat on the bed. The room turned slowly, as if I were on a sad merry-go-round. I looked around. Montevideo, embroidered washcloth, wedding photo, my books, needle now, my story. And I understood. I was alone. I was alone, completely alone. But in that silence, in that absolute emptiness, something began to be born. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. Ice clarity. Because if I had no one left. So I was not afraid either. And when we lose our fear, then we start to act for real. It was on that night that I began to prepare what no one expected, because what they forgot. It's just that those who have been invisible all their lives learn to observe like no one else. And what I discovered on Aaron's computer, it was going to be just the beginning. That morning, something in me had changed. It was not a snap, nor a grandiose epiphany. It was more like a breeze that enters through a crack, discreet, but firm. The fear that had been consuming me in the last few days had turned into something else. It wasn't courage yet, but it was the will to remain whole. I looked in the mirror while brushing my hair and noticed that, even with the wrinkles, with the eyes a little sunken, there was a firmness to my face that I hadn't seen in a long time. I took the doctor's note. It was still there, folded carefully between the pages of my diary. I held that paper as if holding a secret shared with destiny. I walked to the hallway bookshelf and placed the note inside a specific book, The Art of War. Nathan laughed whenever he saw that title on my bookshelf. You don't even like war, Beverly. He didn't know it now, but I read that book in silence, writing down passages, because there are wars that cannot be won with weapons. You win with patience. After that, I took a deep breath, sat on the edge of the bed, and dialed a number I hadn't called in many years. His name was Edward Collins, my late husband's trusted lawyer, a discreet, firm man, known for solving difficult things with simple words. Why, Nan? He answered me in that usual slow voice. Mrs. Whitmore? What a pleasant surprise. Edward, no. I said, no, bluntly. I will turn on. When said I need to talk to you. In particular, the Cyril Highness Moral about my family. And then she's gone. There was a pause. On the other end of the line, he understood. How? You can come today. At 5, I will close the office door. No one will know. I hung up and felt my hands sweat, but at the same time, I felt relief. For the first time in a long time, I was about to do something just for myself. I prepared my documents, organized the notes in my brown notebook, and took with me a copy of the old account statement, just in case, on the way to the office. In a taxi, Montmartre, I saw Charleston passing by the window, its old streets, its houses with wide porches, its hidden gardens. I thought of the women who had walked there before me, women who resisted in silence, and I felt that I could too. Edward greeted me with a respectful handshake, his eyes furrowed with concern as soon as he saw me. What happened? I sat down, slowly. I opened the bag. I took out the notebook. I want to protect myself from my own family, I said, looking him in the eye. He did not immediately respond. He just took a deep breath. Then he leaned forward. You can tell me everything. Told. Hey, without rushing, without getting excited. I detailed the dinner, the conversation in the office, Emily's visit, Ma. I showed the notes, the dates, the gestures, the words they used. He listened without interrupting, but his eyes betrayed the growing indignation. At the moment, they don't have power of attorney or direct access to their properties. He asked, only the joint accounts that Aaron offered to help. The rest is still in my name, but I don't know how long. Edward was silent for a few seconds. Then he said, "Let's act, but with strategy. You will need to sign documents to protect your inheritance, your property. Yikshando, and if you want to put on record that you are lucid, sane, and fully conscious, I want all this, but I want more. I want to make it clear, yeah, legally, that no one can act as if I were incapable. And if they try, I want them to feel the weight of justice." He smiled slightly. "You have always been stronger than you seemed." At that moment, something inside me took hold. Ah, I wasn't going to run away. I was going to face it. With silence, with evidence, with law. And I'd get disturbed. And if this piece of my life can become a mirror or a hug for someone, help me carry it forward. Like and subscribe here to the channel. And so it makes more difference than you think. Because to tell this story, to relive it all, I wonder. It's a way to breathe again. I returned home before dinner. Wow. Claire was distracted on the phone. Erin in the backyard. Moisto. Emily locked in her room. No one asked where I was. And for the first time, that was a relief. They didn't know that the tables had turned, but that same night, when I checked a desk drawer where I kept old documents, I found something that wasn't there before. An envelope with my name written and a calligraphy. It was Aaron's. In the days that followed, that envelope left by Aaron, which I ended up hiding without even opening it, by intuition or fear. I still don't know. I chose not to confront. Instead, I went back to the routine more carefully than ever. I woke up early, as always. She prepared coffee with the same ritual. Drained it on the cloth. Ning. Sweetened it with honey. Served it in the cups with flowers that Claire said she hated because they looked like museum stuff. But now, I did everything with an intention behind the gesture. Every spoonful of sugar, every step around the house was a silent rehearsal of normalcy. When she passed Aaron in the hallway, she smiled and asked him if he wanted tea. When Emily came down with her headphones in her ears, I complimented her dress. Claire! I even thanked her when she criticized my way of folding the napkins. They couldn't notice. Not yet. Meanwhile, how every free minute became part of my construction. Attorney Edward prepared the paperwork. I would go to the library, as if I were just going to read a newspaper, and use the public computers to open accounts, move values, search for addresses. I opened a new account, just mine, in a digital bank. I made small transfers from the old account, the ones that Aaron thought he still managed for me, on low values, always with justification. Book purchase, ophthalmological consultation, cleaning, ladies' payment, twice. I made copies of all my documents, marriage certificate, house deed, old will, all digitized and saved on a pen drive hidden in the upholstery of the office armchair. the one Claire hated and never used. On one of the coldest days of that month, I walked to Dr. Livingston's clinic. I was odd clown. He said he needed to talk, but outside the appointment hours, he received me with the usual worried look. I sat down, took out of my bag a small tape recorder that I bought in a small shop downtown and, without him knowing, pressed the button. Doctor, I began. Tell me the truth. Did my son and daughter-in-law look for you? He hesitated. How? He lowered his eyes. Then he nodded slowly. They did. Yes, for weeks. They wanted me to issue a report attesting that you have signs of early dementia. I refused, and that's why I wrote that note. They wanted to admit you, Beverly, alone, in a nursing home in Somerville. Well, my shelter, they were already in contact with a center. Hearing that from his mouth was like being slapped in slow motion. I didn't cry. I just took a deep breath. If necessary, do you confirm this in court? I confirm. For you, I confirm. I returned home that day with a new certainty. I wasn't just reacting. I was getting ahead of myself. I called Ruth, an old friend from the library days, a retired teacher. She lived alone in a modest apartment near King Street. She answered with the same laughing voice as always. Ruth, dear, sit here. If one day I need to disappear for a few days, can I count on you? She laughed, thinking it was a joke. When I explained it in a few words, without dramatizing, without details, she became serious. My house is yours, Beverly. You don't even have to knock on the door. I knew it wasn't time to run away yet, but I needed to know that I could. And at that point in history, it's important to tell you something. Sometimes what we need to continue is not a whole plan. It's just a safe place to put your foot. If you are here so far, I beg you, don't let go of my hand. Because what's yet to come is the kind of thing that no one expects from an old woman with trembling hands and a low voice. In the following days, I continued smiling, serving cakes, listening to criticism about my mania for saving useless papers, while inside, I became different. No longer the mother who apologized, no longer the grandmother who accepted crumbs of attention, but the woman that everyone underestimated. And when I decided to finally open that envelope with my handwritten name, I found something that wasn't just a warning. It was a trap. What if I hadn't acted sooner? That week, I would have lost everything. But I was ready. And the next morning, when Claire got a call that made her turn pale, I knew that the first piece of my game had moved. Edward called me on a cloudy Thursday, my son, when the smell of freshly baked bread still filled the kitchen. Beverly, and stay down. That boy sit here still. I need you to come to the office today. I got what I needed. No, I got what I needed. His voice was dry, like someone who carries a difficult truth. I put on my blue coat, the same one Nathan bought me in Savannah, and went on foot. Walking the streets of Charleston was good for me. I felt that. Among the old trees and the crooked sidewalks, I found fragments of myself that the routine had erased. When I arrived, Edward was alone. He closed the door, lowered the blinds, and placed a briefcase on the table. What I'm going to show you now, Beverly, can hurt, but it is necessary. I opened the folder with steady hands. On top, copies of contracts, bank statements, prints of financial transactions, all with my name. That's not a cow, but nothing done by me. Aaron had forged my signature on a loan of $40,000, putting the house as collateral. His name appeared in the request emails, along with copies of my documents, doctored. Below, bills for a new credit card. Opened in my name. Shopping in stores for expensive clothes. Shoes. Dinners. Claire. Calm. She was the one who wore it, and the receipts were all there, with a delivery address to our house. I closed the folder calmly. The silence between us was thick as mud. Edward broke down first. We haven't confronted it yet. Let them dig their own hole. All this is now proof. Not words, not assumptions. Proof. Proof. I nodded. The blood boiled inside. I see you. But on the outside, I kept my composure. They used my good faith as a password. And now they think I'm a vanquished number. I returned home without looking at the windows, without noticing the traffic, without hearing the bells of the downtown church that always made me smile. I went in, left the bag in the same place as always. Claire was lying on the couch with a decoration catalog on her lap. Emily watched videos on her cell phone. Aaron on the computer. Each in his own world, the same world where I was, just a forgotten adornment. I prepared the tea, served it as always, and I sat at the table, alone. As I stirred the sugar in the cup, I looked at them and wondered how it gets to this point. How is it that a child, that boy I rocked on feverish nights, who I taught to read by pointing out the letters with his finger, dirty with flour, turns into a stranger who signs your name to steal from you? It was at that moment that the memories came back strongly. Nathan building the office shelf with his bare hands. Me, sitting on the floor, folding errands, clothes small, media. The smell of the apple cake that Claire said she loved. And now he called it old woman's food. And, some memories never come out. They stay. They become a brand. And even when we think we've forgotten, all it takes is a gesture, a smell, a sound, and everything comes back as if it were yesterday. If you've ever been through something like this, if you've ever been betrayed by someone you raised with all the love in the world, or if you have any memories that never left you, comment here. He only writes, I've felt it, or I understand. Me. Because telling this story is hard for me, but maybe it also serves to remind someone that they are not alone. In the following days, I followed my theater. Then I kept cooking, smiling, now, taking notes, now. But now, with each smile, how? I knew that I was carrying proof in my hands. Every lie they told me was one more stone in the wall I was building. And if there's one thing I've learned from life, it's that those who dig holes for others always forget to look where they're stepping. Because while Claire was making retirement plans with the money on my card, I found out that that loan Aaron took out was already due. And guess what? If he didn't pay, the house was going to auction, the house that Nathan built with me. But before that happens, I was going to turn the tables on it. And it would all start with a letter that I would deliver myself, not into their hands, but in the hands of the only person they would ever imagine. That night, I sat at the table with the calm of someone who already knew what was coming. The smell of roast chicken with rosemary filled the kitchen. And the noise of cutlery echoed more than voices. Claire served the portions with that automatic smile, as if each gesture was rehearsed. Emily, and as always, glued to her cell phone, and Aaron was thoughtful. Since he received a call that day, he had been a little restless. It was in the middle of dinner, when he commented on the price of bills and Claire cracked a joke about organizing the financial mess of the house, which I blurted out. Oh, speaking of organizing, I talked to the lawyer today. The sound of Aaron's fork hitting the plate broke the silence. He dropped the piece on the floor, bent down to pick it up with a muffled excuse. But I had already seen what I needed to see. The fright, no. The nervousness, the fear. And then, what I'm doing calm. Claire looked at me, her voice disguised as sweet. Lawyer, Beverly, you, and Tarstel Bonner. And why? Is everything okay? I smiled, and it was a real smile. The first in a long time. Why, Claire, people my age need to be prepared, don't they? Papers, documents, leave everything tidy. Something will happen. Emily didn't even look up from her phone. Aaron? No. However, Mary became rigid. The tension in his shoulders, his eyes fixed on his plate, and a vein pulsing in his neck that only appeared when he was furious inside. Why? Nobody said anything else. The dessert came cold, tasteless. I ate every spoonful of pudding like I was savoring a win. That night, ready to go to bed, I heard my bedroom door open with a dry creak. It was Aaron. He entered without asking permission, his face tense, his eyes red. Looking now, I'm going to come down. Did you talk to a lawyer? Mom? Me. I closed the book I was reading and sat in the armchair. I did. Why? Because I need to protect myself. He took a deep breath, paced from one side to the other. Then he stood in front of me, his arms crossed, as if he wanted to intimidate, but he couldn't. Do you trust a stranger more than your own child? I stared at him firmly. I trust those who haven't called me a burden yet. The phrase hit like a slap. He was speechless. His mouth opened a little, as if to say something, but nothing came out. He turned suddenly and left the room, slamming the door. I sat there, my heart racing. The cold ran down my spine, not out of fear, but of liberation. For the first time, I had said what I felt. For the first time, I imposed myself. And the feeling, it was one of rebirth. I went to bed that night knowing that the game had started. They were no longer going to act in the dark. Now, as agency will try they knew I could see it, but what they didn't know yet was that the time of lies was ending, because the next step, it involved my granddaughter's name, and it was time to show Emily who the woman she tried to erase really is. I woke up before the sun that morning. The sky was still gray, and the silence of the house seemed denser than ever. I got up slowly, numb, as I did every day, but this time with another kind of weight on my back, not that of age, but that of decision. I prepared the coffee, numb, as always. I used the powder that Claire said was too strong and poured it into the cup she hated. I wrote a short, direct letter. Oh, say the Yukon. Without drama. Me. I went to take care of my life. Beverly. Now, it's so tired. I placed it on the table. Next to the teapot. As if leaving a warning before traveling. I climbed up on Loon. I see what she's doing. Grabbed my small suitcase, the blue one on wheels, which I used on trips with Nathan, and put inside only what I needed. Light clothes, the notebook, the documents, an extra change of clothes, the hidden flash drive with the evidence, and the copy of the folder that Edward had prepared. I closed the zipper without looking back. I went down the stairs, feeling each step with my heart. The house, Ireland, that house. Each corner had a story, a memory, a scar. But now, all that had become the scene of a theater of contempt, and I was no longer an actress. I called a taxi on the old phone. Nana said, the same one they thought I barely knew how to use. Police station? No, please. The driver asked no questions. When I got there, I asked to speak to an investigator, a woman, if possible. He didn't want explanations for skeptical eyes. I was attended by a lieutenant named Judith, with firm look and broad shoulders. I showed the evidence, explained the situation, handed over copies of the forged contracts, the transactions in my name, the audios with Claire and Aaron's voice plotting. She looked at me seriously. Miss Beverly, do you want to file a formal complaint of fraud and psychological abuse? Yes, and I want to put everything in writing, so no one can say that I confused the dates. It took more than an hour, but I left there with the police report in hand. From there, on the corridor, I went straight to Ruth's building. She welcomed me with a tight hug and teary eyes. You didn't have to go through this alone. Beverly, and Tornum, on next time. I needed to pass. But now, I don't pass anymore. Her apartment was small, with flowery curtains and the smell of lavender. I settled into the guest room. Once, no card. Took off my shoes, and, for the first time in a long time, I closed my eyes without fear. The phone rang in the afternoon. It was Aaron. I answered with the calm voice of someone who no longer has anything to lose. Mom, Mom, what's going on? You left the house without saying anything. I said, I left a letter. What is this? A little theater? You'll regret treating us like that. I smiled. Ooh, even without him seeing. Son, regret is what you'll feel when you find out that I remember everything. And that now, everything you have hidden, it is written. He was silent. Then he hung up. I stared at my phone for a while, thinking about how that voice, which once called me Mommy with so much love, now carried only threats. But it was too late. The rupture had already happened. Old Beverly, who apologized for taking up space, stayed in that house. The one who left, suitcase in hand and head held high, was another. And when the summons arrived, what did you show? It was their world that was going to fall apart, because no one imagined what I still had. It didn't take long for the dust to start rising. 3 days were enough. 3 days of silence on my part, of absence at breakfast, in the smell of hot bread, in the note in the fridge, and chaos settled in that house like a storm that no one foresaw, but that I had already seen for months. Edward acted quickly. The joint accounts were frozen. The fake mortgage on the house was immediately registered as suspicious with the bank, and internal audit began investigating the doctored signatures. The movement in my name stopped. As a result, Aaron lost access to the cards, and Claire, realizing that the March invoice had not been paid, panicked. I received a call from Edward himself. Sober voice, as always. They tried to withdraw from your account today. It has already been barred. They also called the bank trying to remove his credit authorization. They did not succeed. The system now requires signature with biometrics, the kind that only you have. Aaron called me twice. Claire, Nerys, 1 tell. Another 5. More and me. I didn't answer any. Emily sent a message that said only, "Where are you?" I took a deep breath. That girl could still save herself, but it wouldn't be with her parents as an example. On the same day, Edward officially notified the 3 by mail and email. Any attempt to move property or finances in my name would be considered fraud and would result in immediate legal action. The masks began to crack. Aaron called Dr. Livingston, trying to convince him to say that it was all an exaggeration. But the doctor firmly, "You are," replied, "I have already informed the authorities, and if they insist, I'll call my lawyer." Claire tried to sell 2 of my bracelets, the ones I got from Nathan on our 10th wedding anniversary, at a pawn shop on King Street. The attendant became suspicious, called the police, and she was taken to provide clarification. That woman who made fun of nursing homes now sat in front of a police chief, trying to explain why she had jewelry that didn't belong to her. Emily, well, I, Emily cried. Bye. He cried a lot. She called me again. Grandma, hi. I didn't know it was all like this. They said it was just to help you. I didn't answer. Not yet. You know, there are things that we live and keep. Out of shame. Out of pain. Out of fear that no one will understand. But maybe, by telling, we will help another heart to breathe. If this story makes sense to you, enjoy this video and subscribe here to the channel. Sometimes it is in stories like this that we find a mirror or a warning. The house phone rang day and night. Aaron tried to convince even the neighbors that I was confused. Senile, mine was so carpet. One characteristic manipulated. Oh, but no one believed it anymore. Not after the summons. Not after the tests. That week, they were summoned to testify. Edward took care of everything. He told me, my ditilma, absurdista, as saying she called, stay where you are. Now, it's up to them. And with justice, for the first time, the house that made me shut up now echoed with the lack of my voice. And the woman they called weak. It became a name that no one else had the courage to pronounce. But what Aaron didn't know, it was that the next visit he would receive, it was not from me. It came from someone he never imagined he would find on the right side of history. The Charleston Municipal Courthouse has always seemed to me a cold, almost impersonal place. But on that Monday morning, the wind seemed calmer and the sky, for some reason, was clear. I arrived early, accompanied by Edward. Now he did too, Mom. My lawyer, my disease shown, my fight, and Dr. Livingston Mutt, who walked beside me with quiet dignity. I wore a navy suit that Nathan bought me years ago, saved for important occasions, and this was the most important of my life. As I entered the hall, I took a deep breath. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was the quiet certainty that, this time, they would not interrupt me. I wouldn't need to scream or bang on the table. I was going to win with the only weapon left intact in me. The truth? Aaron arrived a few minutes later, his face haggard. Now, his dark circles under his eyes. Claire tried to keep her cocky air, but you could see it in her eyes. The ground had already broken under her feet. Emily wasn't, and I confess that I was grateful for that. That was no place for a granddaughter to hear how cruel her parents could be. The hearings began with the presentation of evidence. How Edward was direct, calm, but firm. He showed the bank statements, mortgage documents, the signatures that experts confirmed to be false. Then he played the audio where Aaron said, "She's not going to live forever. We need guarantees." The judge, a gentleman with a low voice and a serious expression, looked at me and asked, "Mrs. How do you on? Beverly Ann Whitmore, do you wish to make any statements?" I stood up slowly. No, we adjusted the collar of my coat and walked to the microphone. I looked around. I saw faces that seemed distant to me, but all attentive. No. And then he said, I was too good. And that's why they called me crazy. The room was muted. Wow. No whisper. No reaction. Worry. Not a cough. Just that silence. The same one that accompanied me for years in that house. But for the first time, silence served me. It was respect. Aaron tried to raise his voice. She denied it, said it was a misunderstanding, that everything was an accounting error, that I was being influenced. The judge just raised his hand and asked for silence. Claire tried to deny the recording of the pawn shop, but the police had already sent a report. The chief confirmed that she tried to sell the items claiming to be gifts, even with family heirloom tags. The masks there did not fall. They fell apart. When the judge announced the preliminary verdict, total freezing of assets, formal investigation of fraud and misappropriation. Why, and a protective order so that none of them would approach me without judicial authorization. I just nodded. I didn't cry. He doesn't smile. Justice, when it arrives without noise, has more strength than any scream. And if you've made it this far with me, why, know one thing. Sometimes, what seems like the end, why, it is only the first act of our freedom, because the most remarkable moment in my history was yet to come, because that very afternoon I received a letter, handwritten, with lyrics that I would never forget, and the signature, it was Emily's. But what she told me in that letter, it's what changes everything. The envelope was simple, made of brown paper. No one say what once folded carefully. Now, the handwriting, trembling, sounded like someone trying to get it right after making a lot of mistakes. I recognized it immediately. It was Emily's. I sat in the armchair in the living room of Ruth's apartment and opened it slowly. Inside, there were few words, but each one of them weighed more than all the years I spent in silence. Grandma, I'm sorry. I listened to you that night. I pretended I didn't understand. I was a coward. But I know you loved me when no one else did. And I screwed it up. And they are no guys. Please, give me a chance to fix it. At the end, there was a phone number and the address of a small cafe on the corner of Queen Street. The same one where I used to take her when I was little. After the pediatrician's appointments. Was alone. With a heart more cautious than hopeful. And there she was, without makeup, in sweatshirts, puffy eyes and clasped hands on the table. Grandma, I just sat down, waited. She collapsed. I repeated what they did. I treated you like a burden. And now I see that the weight was the love that you carried alone. Her words crossed me, and at the same time, something inside me has settled down, like a piece that finally finds its place. I didn't come to blame you, Emily. I came to listen to you. That's all. She cried. How? He asked to testify. She said that she knew about the plan from the beginning. When that she heard her parents talking about the so-called nursing home, the signatures, the conversations with the doctor. Well, he said he kept quiet out of fear, out of convenience, for immaturity. But now, then, he wanted to do right thing. Edward took care of everything. He scheduled the new testimony, this time with the presence of the prosecution. Emily told her everything. Signed. Confirmed. Ah, he sealed the fate of his parents. Aaron lost his job shortly after. The bank did not accept renegotiation. The house went into seizure proceedings. Claire was indicted for identity fraud. Well, and the judge ordered her to pay the amount spent on the cards in my name. I learned from Ruth that they began to live in favor at the house of a distant cousin. I was not thrilled with their fall. There was no pleasure in that. There was a strange kind of silence, the one we feel when something finally ends. Even after so long, the local press tried to look for me. They knocked on Ruth's door, left cards. They wanted headlines. They wanted the story of the lady betrayed by her own son. But I refused everything. I don't want fame. I just want peace. And that's what guides me to this day. Because what's next? It is not the end. No war. It is the beginning of one last choice. And it has everything to do with the will. The house is small. Made of light wood, wood, with blue windows and a balcony that faces the sea. It's on a quiet street in Folly Beach, where time seems to slow down and the wind brings more memories than worries. I met her on a Saturday morning when I decided to visit the coast just to breathe another air. But as soon as I saw that crooked white fence and heard the sound of the waves in the background, I knew what I my human mom. It was there. That was where I was going to start living the rest of my life. I didn't need much. A comfortable sofa, a rocking chair I bought at a local market, a bookshelf full of books, and my notebook, the same one where I wrote everything on the days when my heart bled silently. Today, I write letters, many. Some I never send. Others I send to women I know in the support group I help coordinate. They are ladies like me, with different stories, but similar wounds. We look each other in the eye and understand, without speaking, the weight of having loved too much and been forgotten. There, there's some sun. When it called I rediscovered not only my voice, but my value. Loneliness, which once suffocated me, when at one town, is now my company, and the silence, which once screamed inside me, now embraces me. Emily comes every weekend. She always arrives with flowers, daisies, like the ones Nathan gave me, and brings a sweet bread that she learned to make herself. She helps me with the chores, listens to me, tells stories of her childhood, of my youth, of the time when a note would change the course of everything. The other day, she asked me, Harold, another Chakyokan, Antiada, Grandma, do you regret not having fought, of not having shouted, slammed the door, and Wendy's made a scandal? I smiled, and I replied, one child, Pionei, you old Sakai. No, and in the Chantiam, my daughter, Lisa, because fighting passes, but dignity, this one stays. I smiled again without guilt. I went back to sleep without waiting for steps in the hallway. Time has not cured everything. No, and you. There are days when I remember Aaron's voice, and it hurts me. There are nights when I dream about Nathan, and wake up crying. But what time gave me back was more precious than forgiveness. It gave me back respect. That's it. That is enough. But before closing this cycle, there was one decision left, the will, and I knew exactly who needed to hear what was about to happen. The will was ready on a clear morning, one of those in which the wind seems to sweep away the remains of what has already passed. I signed with firm hands, without trembling, with the same conviction of someone who knew, too late, that love also needs limits. In it, now, I made it clear. When half of my assets go to the foundation that welcomes elderly women in vulnerable situations, the other half for Emily, with a special clause that she continues to study, work, and never forget that regret is only valid when it turns into attitude. Aaron and Claire, nothing, not for revenge, but for justice. They didn't lose the money. Still. They missed the chance to look me in the eyes with truth. Today, no, at 71 years old, I sit on my balcony facing the sea with my heart at peace. Not because he won, but because he survived with dignity. I sometimes reread Dr. Livingston's note, which has become a kind of reminder hanging from the hallway mirror. Don't go home. Run. I didn't run. Walked. One step at a time. Afraid. Yes, but also with faith. The other day, I received a letter from Dr. Livingston himself. He wrote, Wayne, you saved more than yourself. She saved other women who thought that silence was the only way. Those words made me cry, because, deep down, all I wanted was this, that my story was not just pain, but direction. And if there's something I've learned on this journey, it's just that we can even be good. It may even be forgotten, but it should never cease to be whole, because when you rebuild yourself, no one else can take you, neither house, one day you, one see one child, I still to come, nor name, nor life, one, the weather, he does not heal everything, but he teaches. It teaches that those who truly love you do not hide you, do not weaken you, do not annul you. It teaches that silence, when it comes from wisdom, is louder than any scream. If you have stayed with me so far, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. His listening was like a hug. And if this story touched something inside, enjoy this video, It's like turning on a light in a dark hallway. And if you want to come back to hear more stories, subscribe to the channel. Wow. It will be like coming back to have another coffee with me. Right here in the comments of which city you are watching me. I'd love to know how far my voice has gone. And it activates the bell. Oh, my dear, so you don't lose it when the coffee is ironed again. Now, don't go away yet. Nisu, listen to the next true story that will appear on the screen. Always remember, each wrinkle tells a story, and each story carries a strength. How? Watch the next video here on the channel with another incredible story.